Hey, what's going on everybody? I'm Luis Trevino and welcome back to the channel here at Wild in Frames. If you're new here, I am a bird and wildlife photographer based in the Rio Grande Valley, Texas. And I make videos all about the Rio Grande Valley and all the amazing opportunities here so you can come and visit and document, photograph all the wildlife in this beautiful area. And in this video, I'm going to show you how I edited this beautiful photo of a gray fox that I found at the Edinburgh wetlands, but not just how I edited it, how I was actually able to save it. Because if you see right here, I shot this at 12,800 ISO and I was able to recover the photo and get it to look like this. And as you can see, almost virtually no noise whatsoever. So it was just so amazing to be able to photograph this. Actually, the year before, I was able to photograph a gray fox in the Edinburgh wetlands here in Edinburgh, Texas. It's a world birding center, so we see a lot of birds, but they occasionally get some foxes. And this was so awesome for me because I never in my life would have thought that I would be able to photograph a fox in the Rio Grande Valley, you know, in South Texas. Yeah, and just really being able to be blessed by having this animal show itself to me, you know, it just means the world to me. I was so glad that I was able to save it. So it was already towards the end of the day. The park was actually closing. So my buddy and I, Cody, were actually on the way out. And as we're on the way out, it was his first time there. So I was telling him a little bit about the park and stuff. And I was showing him, hey, this area is pretty nice because often you'll see hummingbirds here. And as I was telling him this, I see this gray fox just kind of, you know, sitting there, you know, so nice, you know, so cute. I'm talking and I'm registering this and I'm like, I think to myself, is this a statue? Because the wetlands has just recently made some renovations and we had previously seen a statue of a alligator a few hours ago. And so I thought, there's no way this is real. This has to be a statue because it just wasn't moving. And then Cody's like, dude, it's a fox. It's a fox. So, you know, we both just bust out our cameras, get in position, and we just start shooting. And it was just such an awesome moment. And this is why I love this kind of photography, because you just never know what you're going to encounter. And when you get something that is just so unexpected, it just makes the entire trip or the entire experience so amazing. And it just, your endorphins go through the roof. And so I would definitely recommend it. If you're not into this kind of photography, it is one of the best. And so again, you know, obviously this photo meant a lot to me. So me being able to actually save this photo, even though it's going to be so noisy, 12,800 ISO, it meant a lot. And I actually wanted to be able to print this photo because I actually want to print this out for my son, which I did end up doing, and it looks really good. Topaz really came in and saved the day. And I'm not affiliated, I'm not sponsored or anything. I just want to talk to you guys about the process of how I went through this so I could save this photo and get it to look as good as I did, I guess. You know, I hope you think it looks good too. All right, so the first thing that you need to know is that if you actually try to go to edit and then edit in Denoise, you're not gonna get the best results possible. The reason why I believe that is that whenever it actually pulls into any other software, whether it's Photoshop or Topaz or anything else that you're using, it pulls a TIFF and technically it's not using the raw file. And to really get the best out of this, you need to be using the raw file. And so what you're gonna have to do is come here to where the photo is, and then you can reveal in Finder. And this is my photo right here. And if I click space, you can open it. Now, it's actually quite interesting because when I open this in preview, it actually looks a lot worse. Like when I put it into Lightroom, I don't know if Lightroom just does some initial tweaks to it because it looks way worse here. And if you look at it very closely, I don't know if, you know, YouTube is doing it justice with the compression and all, but not only does it have noise, in Lightroom you can see it has noise. In preview, not only does it have just regular noise, there's a lot of color noise as well. And so there's all these little fragments here of like this red. It just looks really nasty, which made me even more worried. So what you're gonna do is make sure you open up the raw file and you're gonna go open with, and we're gonna come in with the denoise. So let's open it. And most people if you're using JPEGs or you're using like the TIFF or a DNG, you know, sometimes when you import into Lightroom, it transfers it into a DNG. It's not gonna work as well as using the raw file. So take that into consideration. Now, if you do have those files, like honestly using their other AI models, like the standard, clear, low light, and severe noise, they actually do a pretty good job. Like you're looking at it right now. But man, like if you just use raw has a lot more data and it's just able to save the photo and just make it look so good just because it has more data to work with. And so you can even see it right here. Like you can see the comparison and you're seeing the raw on this left side here. You can look at all this color noise and you can just see how beautiful, like the beautiful job it does in recovering it. I guess these other models like do an okay job, but at the end of the day, I mean, just look at that. Like go to the original, you can see, here we go, boom. Like, come on. I mean, that's pretty good. I was actually really impressed. Like, look at that. Look at all the color noise, like in its fur, and then boom. So the color does shift a little bit, so just take that in mind. But I mean, come on, you know? So what you can do is you can remove the noise, you can enhance the sharpness, you can even get some of the original details and color noise back. I'm not gonna do that. What I am gonna do though is I'm gonna remove the sharpness just because I rather just use the sharpness from Topaz Sharpen. So I'd rather just do that. And I mean, you can even increase the noise here, the removal of noise, you can make it less. Honestly, I don't really think it's necessary. I think you're fine just doing, I believe it was at 49. You can even bring this lower because you can barely tell. Like, I mean, it looks really, really nice. And that's why I'm not even worried sometimes anymore. You know, I'm not even worried about how high my ISO is. You know, yes, sometimes it's not gonna look as sharp and you're not gonna get the colors as nice as you ultimately could. But in scenarios like this, where this is a once in a lifetime moment, you don't really have the opportunity here to get the settings on the camera a lot better. Topaz really will come into play and it'll just save that photo for you. In my scenario, the fox was just under a lot of brush and there was a lot of shadows. And so it was really dark in there. The camera had to be at 12,800 ISO just to get some good exposure on it. So now what you're gonna do is just go ahead and just save the image. It'll just go ahead and save it. And now what we're gonna do is import it into Lightroom so that we can start making our edits. So let's go ahead and open up and develop. And let's start doing our thing here. First thing that I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go ahead and crop this. I'm usually doing a 4:5. So I am taking into consideration posting this in Instagram. And also I do wanna do a 4:5 print. I don't know, I just gotten accustomed to doing that for Instagram that now it's just like the normal size for me. But I'm just gonna go ahead and, you know, focus in on this fox a little bit more. I'm gonna use the rule of thirds here, kind of keep its eyes on this top section here. And I didn't really remove much in my initial photo. I did keep this piece of wood plank here. That essentially was where the feeder was, like the hummingbird feeder was right on top of that. And so yeah, let's hit enter on that. That looks pretty good. What I am gonna do now is that I actually am gonna open it into Photoshop and I will then do a sharpen with Topaz. I usually do like to do that first because I don't know, it's just a little habit of mine. Like if the photo doesn't inspire me by it looking sharp, sometimes it doesn't really motivate me to edit it. And so I like to sharpen it first because then I see, oh my God, it's like so sharp. And then it just makes me want to edit it even more. I don't know, that's strange, I know, but that's just how I am at the moment. So Topaz has some really good AI models here for just getting your photo as sharp as possible. And so you can just play around. You can come here to the grid and then you can come and look to see which one is the one you like the most. So they have a few different ones: standard, motion blur, and very noisy, very blurry, too soft, very blurry. Standard, as you can see, is just so intense. Like that looks really, really bad. I do not like that at all. And honestly, the one that I'm liking the most right now is too soft, very blurry. But let's look at some of these other ones. We got too soft, normal. Let's try that. I don't really like that. If I increase it a little bit more, let's go to like 70%. That's looking a little bit better, but I think that motion blur Let me actually do motion blur on this one. Let me just do normal on this. Yeah, no, very noisy. Let's try that. So okay, yeah, very blurry. It's a little bit too much, very noisy. I think, yeah, between like motion blur and too soft, it looks pretty good. I'm actually gonna go with very blurry, too soft. I feel like this one is the best. It's not too intense and it doesn't look too fake. I think it's just like a happy medium. So let's go ahead and go with that one. So now you're just gonna hit apply. It's gonna send this back to Photoshop, and then I'm just gonna go ahead and hit save. And then what that'll do is just bring it back into Lightroom. It's annoying doing this step from Lightroom to Photoshop and then Topaz, but I don't know, maybe you know. If you do, comment below and let me know. But every time I try to use Topaz Sharpen directly from Lightroom, it just does the sharpening for me and I have no control as to how much I wanted to sharpen. So now it has these two, and there we go. That is our photo that has been a little bit sharpened for us. So it's looking pretty good. All right, so now I do use these LUTs that I very much enjoy from another photographer with Luke. Check out his Instagram, amazing photographer based out of Europe, I believe. And man, his stuff is so good. And I use this stuff as a base just because I really do like that moody look when it comes to these photographs. And so usually I'm working with these top three, but let's see, I feel like there's another one here that I had. Yeah, this one. Yeah, so green moody. And this obviously what it does, it just gives you a good starting place where you can then just come in here and then work off that. And so what I'm gonna do now is I'm going to just go ahead and actually start messing with the light here. So let's go ahead. Okay, no, it's too much. So I'm gonna bring light up, bring the exposure down a little bit. We got clarity, the vibrance. I do like messing with the collaboration, but honestly, I think this LUT just did like the majority of work for me. I want to make these reds pop a little bit more. So I'm just going to move the blue primary here a little bit. And usually I'm just experimenting with all of these just to kind of see what I like. Come to HSLs, and then I do usually like my greens to be a little bit darker like this. So I think it just already did a really good job of doing that. But now what I want to do is just make this photo pop a little bit more using adjustment layers. So what I'm just going to go ahead and do, I like to kind of play around with the light. So I like to then look at the photo and say, okay, where is the light coming from? How can I make the photo come alive, right? How can I make something that is 2D look 3D? And so I think there's already really good separation from like the background and the fox. You know, obviously the fox already has some pretty good lighting on it and the background is already pretty dark. But what I want to try to do is accentuate these little bits of light that are shining through, and you can see it over here in the back as well. And so let's see what we can do here. I'm going to use a radial. I'm just going to build this out. I pull it up like this. It's kind of like shining through. And sometimes you can give it some direction here, as if it's coming in like that. Let's see if we raise up the whites here a little bit. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. I'm gonna bring that up a little bit more. And what you can do, I do this often. It just really depends, like, because sometimes I just want to edit the background, but I don't want these adjustments to mess with my subject. So I come here to subject subtract. I've been using object recently and it's been so awesome. So I'll just come in here and select the fox and it'll remove the fox from the adjustments that I'm making. And so now you can just go ahead and do like some, something that is a little bit more hardcore. And if you notice, it's not going to affect the subject, which is a really neat trick. So I'm just gonna go ahead and play with that a little bit. You kind of want to give it that heavenly glow, if you will. Dehaze is a really neat one. I don't know if you guys have already been messing around with that, but I like using dehaze a lot. A lot of the times it'll actually just go ahead and obviously make the background a little bit softer. You can also then just blur the background a little bit more. And then if you mess with the color temperatures, you can add color back into it, because sometimes it will desaturate the image. But if you play around with the color, the saturation, it'll bring the color right back. Okay, so that's already looking pretty nice, going from this to that. You see how, like, obviously just adding that light and giving it that directionality is able to just go ahead and you know, emphasize the subject a little bit more. Let me go ahead and try. Yeah, I'm gonna add more green into this. All right, that's the first adjustment. Then I'm just gonna go ahead and I always just darken up the bottom as well. So just gonna come here, add some more blacks. That is just obviously gonna give more of the attention to the face. You know, if you wanted to, you can come in here and try to remove this post, and you can even come and remove these pipes. There is these water pipes that are there. Obviously it doesn't make the photo as nice as possible, but honestly, me, for this particular photo, what I'm gonna try to do is just keep it as real as possible, because I'm already manipulating a lot of the colors anyway. And so, you know, I think honestly that's enough. So I'm gonna go ahead and just make this a little bit darker and drop the exposure a little bit. And then what I want to do is I do want to pop out those eyes a little bit. So I'm just going to go ahead and get my brush, make it a little bit smaller, kind of brush in the eyes a little bit. And here what we can do is just add a little bit of white. You know, you don't want to go too crazy with it, because then it just starts looking pretty bad. You can maybe add some contrast. You can do some dehaze as well. Nah, I'm not digging the dehaze. You can drop in some clarity, some texture, and then maybe a tad of exposure. You don't want to overdo it. That's pretty good. Now, a little trick you can do is you can try to add color to it by just coming here to the color temperature and the saturation, and you can try to add color into it. So for example, if I want to make his eyes just be a little bit more orange, you can try to do that right there. And I think that actually looks pretty good. I'm not gonna saturate them that much. Actually, I'm not gonna saturate at all. Okay, so that's looking pretty good so far. So now I'm just gonna dodge and burn and emphasize some of these areas here on his coat. So I'm just gonna come in, drop the exposure a little bit, and just start messing around with that. So I'm gonna make the brush a little bit bigger. I'm just gonna emphasize what is already there, right? And so if there's light, then I'm just gonna go ahead and add light. If there's shadows, then I will add a little bit more shadows just to kind of make it pop. So basically gonna do that with its ears. And let's see if this thing's working. Yeah, there we go. See that with his ears. You can do that a little bit right here. There's some shadows right there you might wanna emphasize. I'm gonna take auto mask off, drop in a little bit. So that's what that does. And then I will go ahead and actually do the same thing, but I'll add some highlights instead. So I'm coming here, drop some highlights there. This fur, it's pretty nice. Obviously there's a lot going on right here. And like at the tip of his ears where the light is coming through, it's pretty nice as well. And this is just like some of the little details that you can do to kind of make your image just pop a little bit more. And then what you can do is you can just go ahead and bring this down, bring this up, you know, whatever, however you feel comfortable. Same thing for the shadows. But yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. I mean, I think it looks pretty good to me. I think that's actually looking pretty good. It's a little bit different from the original that I had edited, and that's fine. Usually when you edit stuff like this, every time you edit a photo, it's gonna be a little bit different because it's always just experimentation. You're always just messing around with things. And that's one of the things that I kind of learned, because you know, sometimes like you come into Lightroom and you don't really know what to do. And at the end of the day, after watching so many people edit on Lightroom, everybody says the same thing. You just come in here and you start playing around. Now, the one thing that I will say is that you have to know already what you're looking for, and you have to develop your eye to know what looks good. To me, this is one of my favorite styles, and I just found somebody that I already knew that I really liked the style. And I'm at a place right now in where how I edit, where I'm still developing my style, but I know that I like this. And so I basically use these presets as a way to just have my base, and then I just go from there. Right. All right. Thank you guys. Overall, check out Topaz. It really saved this photo for me. Again, I'm not affiliated, but I just wanted to share this tip with you all. So thank you. Have a good one. See you next time. Bye-bye.